Testing 1 million, 2 million. All right, guys, we're good to go. Appreciate y'all being with us. Brad here with another episode of Investor Creator. And we're streaming this in the Facebook group. So, guys, if you're listening to this on podcast or you're listening to this on YouTube, then be sure and join us in the Investor Creator community. And so I have a very special guest today, one of my most special guests of my career, and that's my wife, Casey. And so a couple of years ago, we did an episode about, with the Valentine Day theme, and that was dealing with divorce, okay? Which is a little bit, I guess, pessimistic, but it's one of the big 5 motivators that we see in a good chunk of our deal flow is divorce situations. And so the nuances that are there are pretty vast because you're dealing with one spouse that has called you, which means that there's distrust between 2 spouses. And oftentimes you're at a disadvantage with one spouse because they're wondering, well, my soon-to-be ex just called this person and, I don't know if I want to sell my house. And so there's all this distrust and the negotiation is different. And so it's one of those episodes that we got a lot of really good feedback on. And so this time I wanted to be a little bit more positive, I guess, and talk about working with your spouse. What's the best way to work with your spouse? And so I've been doing real estate for 12 years in the investing world and 5 years prior to that in sales as a realtor. And Case came on board about what, two years ago?
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
Yeah, something
this
like
month,
that.
Actually.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So 2 years exactly, and has been just instrumental in creating the kind of growth and scale that we have had. And we thought it would just be fun to kind of do a podcast. I have, I think, 6 husband-wife teams in the apprenticeship. So hopefully husband-wife teams are going to gain some value from this. But the thing is, and I was thinking about this morning, if you have a spouse and you're in the business, they're your partner, whether they're your business partner or not. And so if there's not alignment in that relationship in terms of the goals, then it's going to create a big problem. And right now we have about 25 or so people per week that I'm talking to that are looking to join with us for training. And one of the things that I'm looking at, well, the main thing I'm looking at in the call is if we can help. Okay. And so we're going through a roadblock section to see like, okay, what are the biggest roadblocks that you have in the business? And the biggest roadblock that I can't help with is an unsupportive spouse. And so I thought like, hey, let's just do a training on this and have fun with it. And hopefully it's valuable to you, whether your spouse is your partner, like in theory or in everything, right? Because they're your partner, whether you know it or not. So I guess, Case, tell everybody how you met me.
So Brad and I actually met in high school. We were friends.
We were friends.
We were friends in high school. Stayed friends, kind of lost touch a little bit. And
she always had her eye on me, though.
He says that, but I think I kind of waited for him to grow up a little bit.
No, I don't know about that.
So sophomore year of college, he AOL instant messaged me.
We're dating ourselves there.
We're dating ourselves.
That's
but
okay.
He AOL instant messaged me and said, hey, do you want to get together for coffee and catch up?
Get some Starbucks.
Get some Starbucks. And so met him at Starbucks. We sat in his truck because I think there's only, 1 or 2 Starbucks in town at that time?
Yeah, 2. And my buddy John happened to be there as well. And she still thinks today that I sent John there to get some approval.
To get some approval, absolutely. So we sat in the truck and talked for a long time.
Yeah, I took her to the funeral home.
Well, we met up at the funeral home and then...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and then you drove me to Starbucks and you drove me back to my car and we talked and talked and talked.
I've always been a romantic, as you can tell.
And we had a strong foundation of friendship, I feel like.
Yeah.
Which has been wonderful and just a huge blessing that we've had that.
For sure.
But so I mean, we've been together ever since it,
Yeah.
We tried to remain friends and things were just different. Life was different.
Yeah, just she finally she fell totally in love with me and that's just how that went. So
we were 19.
19, yeah, 19 when we started dating, and I proposed when we were 22.
I think so. We got married when we were 23.
Yeah. So that's kind of how that went. And so you started off as a school teacher.
I did.
And
Yes.
how did you enjoy that?
Well, at the beginning, it was great. I loved it. I loved the idea of helping children, families, uh, and then it became something that I just didn't want to be a part of anymore. I taught in inner city schools and dealt with a lot of behavior issues that were outside of my expertise. I taught public pre-K and kindergarten for 5 years, and I dealt with a lot of extreme behaviors, furniture throwing, um, extreme language at 4 and 5 years old.
Yeah, it was insanity.
It was insanity.
Yeah.
And, this is government schools. So, your hands were tied as a teacher. And I could not be as effective as I wanted to be. I thought maybe changing to a different district might be a good move. So ended up getting a job in another district, decided, nope, I need to just be done with this stage of my life. So did that for 5 years. And then was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I've taught fitness classes for over 10 years now. So I started teaching more fitness classes. Got my health coach certification. I'm very passionate about health and nutrition. And then we got pregnant with our daughter.
Yeah.
So
things change at that point.
If
you don't have children, you'll find out if you do. But so let's go back. And whenever we started first dating, I was selling real estate, and I think that was really, really good because Casey saw from the very beginning that if I had a phone call come in, then all bets were off. I had to go take care of that business. Now you grew up in a household that was very much like a 9-to-5 sort of household. Is that fair to say?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my mom stayed home some of that, but yeah, I mean, definitely did not grow up with entrepreneur parents that, they were off work when they were off work and they were at work when they were at work. So yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, I was raised by my grandparents and they were farmers. So, I never saw anybody go to a job every day, which was really good, because I wasn't programmed with that. And I think it's kind of difficult. And I think for a lot of people, this may be kind of a point of contention is, you would go to work all day and come home and I would be at home. And now I had work, but my work was just basically being on call. I wasn't all the time busy. And so one of the things that you'll see in this business is, and I've seen this all the time, where you can make really a great income, 100, 200K, extremely part-time. And so, and I've told people, like a good example of this is my friend Luke in Des Moines. Years ago, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but he made multiple six figures that year, part-time. And he was like a network engineer, like a computer systems analyst or something like that, something techie. But he was working 60 hours a week at his job. And so I told him whenever he quit his job to do real estate, I said, man, you need to get a hobby. You need to do something, ideally something active, because if you don't, you're used to spending 60 hours a week working plus your real estate. And you're going to go to just real estate. You're going to have all this time and it's going to be nice at first, but then that energy kind of starts to turn against you if you don't get rid of it. So I've seen this actually many times since then. But do you think that it was difficult for you at any point where you were working, you were unhappy with your work life, and then, I was kind of an idiot at this point because, I did my best to be supportive. I'd take her Starbucks. She really liked those, what was it, apple ciders or pumpkin spice or whatever it was back in the day.
Caramel apple spice.
Okay,
yes.
cool.
Yes.
So I'd try to take her those and, be supportive because I knew she was having a tough day. But then I was kind of an idiot because she'd be like, oh, what are you having for lunch today? And I'd send her a picture of like my steak and my Manhattan, where I'm eating at our favorite restaurant by myself.
Right.
And she's trying to like guzzle down food as quickly as we can.
Right.
So if you're in a better position, folks, like don't do what I did and kind of like showcase that, But was that ever an issue or like tough for you?
Tough for me. I think the lunch thing honestly was the biggest thing that I remember, because that was one thing that I remember being so stressful. I would take my class through the lunch line. by the time I got back to my room, I had maybe 15 minutes to eat lunch.
Yeah.
And so, as someone who values health, and it's like, what can I eat that's healthy, and in 15 minutes, and that was just a stressful part for me. But as far as after hours, I mean, I can tend to be on the workaholic side, and so I was the teacher who got there at 6 a.m. a lot of time, and of course, I didn't have children back then. I wouldn't leave till 6 p.m. And so, as far as supporting you in working and meeting your goals, I feel like I was always supportive of that. It was it was more for me. I had never experienced the time freedom. I always felt like, okay, I have to have a job that I am tied to, and I'm here from this hour to this hour. And, teaching's not something that you can ever just leave at work. But it was just a different mindset that I had never experienced or seen anyone firsthand live the life of an entrepreneur, where there's a lot of struggle and grind and determination that you have to have, but you do get to make your own schedule. And that's something that now I know I absolutely wanted back then, and I just didn't know. So
let's talk about this. So back before I'd ever done a real estate deal on the investing side, I sold real estate, and the builder developer that I worked for in college, he ended up going bankrupt. Okay, so the crash of 08 happened. The banks called his loans, even though he never missed a payment. So that's a big reason why we have $0 of bank money in my business today, is I don't trust bankers. But I had to go back into the traditional form of selling real estate. Well, that was like, 07. And so I made a mediocre income that year in 07. And, but I'd gotten my undergraduate degree in accounting. And so I figured like, okay, I'm kind of messed up on my time frames. That was the beginning of 08. And so I went into accounting because my undergraduate was in accounting, and I realized quickly I couldn't do that work. Like I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I started a pressure washing business when I was 16 years old. I don't know if you guys can catch it in the frame. We've got, my first business was a vending machine business. I got a job at Food Line, and I saved up my money, my first few paychecks, and I bought 2 vending machines on eBay, and then they broke, and I realized it's going to cost more to fix them than to just buy a new one. And so my first business venture was a catastrophic failure, but I still have it to remind me kind of where we came from. But there came a point when I went into accounting, couldn't do this work. I had this partner at this public accounting firm that had the big Napoleon complex I'd ever seen. And it just wasn't my personality type to do that work. And so I remember, we had a conversation. I don't remember exactly what I said or anything, but I just remember that Casey was like, well, just quit. Like, just the easiest, most obvious answer. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. We had just bought our first house together. We're paying for our wedding. I just bought this little German Shepherd dog I didn't need. Okay. I had no real plan to make an income. That was, I think, a great plan. What in the world made you just quit?
Honestly, I think that some of it was belief in you and trust in you. I had known you since you were 16, and I knew how entrepreneurial minded you are. And I just had a lot of faith in you, and always have. So I remember thinking, even when we were just friends, that you were going to do big things, and you had big dreams and goals, and I just believed in you.
Well,
so
that's why you're my Valentine. So I went back into selling real estate, and then I retired my license in 2010 just to do investment. I'd never done an investment deal ever. And so for me, it took me 8 months to hit my first deal. So from January to August, I had nothing to show for it. Okay. And I was pressure washing houses. And I remember your grandfather, Walt, and I love the man. I really do. He's a great man. Just one of the most principled men I've ever met in my life. But he came to me and said, Brad, how's real estate? I said, well, Walt's not too good. I'm still trying for that first deal. He said, Brad, you need to get a job. I said, well, Walt, you don't understand. I'm gonna buy something subject to. I'm gonna sell it with owner financing. I'm gonna create these notes. It's gonna be great. Brad, get yourself a job. So that created.
And he was an entrepreneur.
Yeah, he was an entrepreneur,
Yeah,
and that's why it hurt my feelings so bad. Is I mean, he was in construction, built bridges, roads, schools, mid-rise buildings. Like he was a real player, and he felt like I needed to get a job. But I will say that I don't know if I would be here if you were super disparaging, you know, because I didn't have my belief system really built at that point. And that's why, like, it's so important to, sometimes you have to you always have to protect yourself from your peer group. Okay. Unless your peer group is doing better than you. You know, Tom Hopkins, who's an old sales artist, said, you know, he'd make people at a seminar repeat this. I will never take advice from anyone who's doing worse than I am. Okay. And I think that we often do that. And I think it's one of those things that your peer group, you know, like my grandmother was an amazing lady, but she was not a high performer in business. And so she would tell me something from, you know, a spirit of really trying to do what she felt was best for me and like giving me really good advice. But she was not in a position to give me really good advice based on what I was trying to do. And so you have to really segment yourself from other people that are not believers or not people that have accomplished what you're setting out to accomplish. Okay. Oddly, or I guess sadly, I should say, sometimes that's your spouse. You know, sometimes that's your spouse. And so I've seen this within the apprenticeship. I know of one apprentice specifically where we've talked about this a lot. And he told his wife, he said, look, I love you. This is what I feel like I have to do for this family. I'm doing it whether you like it or not. And she was not happy. She was not happy until that first check came in. I think it was roughly $70,000 or so that came in, and he didn't tell her about it. It hit the account, and she called him frantic and said, where did this $70,000 come from? Somebody's made a mistake. He said, there's no mistake. I've been real estating, you know? And I think that that's probably a good way to do it. You know, you really have to protect your dreams and your hopes from people that maybe mean well, but they're not in a position to really help you along, right? So there came a point when, you know, what made you want to transition into real estate?
Well, I was at a point in life where I had stayed home for a little while and done the stay-at-home mom thing. We have 2 children now, and so when our son he got a little bit older, I realized I want to do something. You know, like we love the little Mother's Day out and the schools that that we have available to us here. We have some really great options here, and so I was like, I really want to do something else. And I just kind of did a little bit of searching as far as, okay, what do I want to do? I definitely don't want to go back into teaching, you know, but I want to be able to serve other people. And I love to be in community, build community. And I think you just mentioned one day, well, have you thought about getting your real estate license? Because we've always talked about it'd be really nice to have somebody that we could, you know, have, like, whether it be a family member or close friend that's licensed as a realtor. And I was like, well, that's kind of easy. I mean, I guess it can't hurt anything, right, for me to get my real estate license. And so I took my sweet time doing it because our son was pretty little.
Yeah.
He was just a few months old, I guess, when I started working on
probably
my real estate license. And so started, you know, taking the class online, took my sweet time. And I just decided, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna list our houses. And yeah, so that's, you know, it's just kind of one of those things that it just made sense. And
yeah, totally
at the time. So.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. But there came a point when, I mean, Casey was listing our houses, but she started to spend a lot of time in the office. And really, I'm not a detail person, if that's not abundantly clear at this point. For anybody that knows me for more than 10 minutes, I can see that. I mean, I can create a lot of chaos. I can buy a lot of houses. We're world-class buyers. Negotiation is set. We're really, really good at a lot of things, but I'm not great at making sure the property taxes are paid, or you know, we managed a lot of subs. Me and Tony did for a long time, but we're not great rehabbers, and I don't want to be a great rehabber. You know, I've done the gut down Joanna Gaines reframes and all that. There's more money, in my opinion, and velocity of the cash just doing more deals that, you know, we're doing just kind of lipstick stuff mostly. Okay. But there came a point when it seemed like you were more interested in the investing business than the real estate business, the realtor business. So tell us about that. And was there anything that surprised you that you really didn't expect working with us?
I think so much surprised me because I really became more involved in the investing business because I realized, oh, Brad needs a bookkeeper. you know, he needs a very organized, you know, detail-oriented bookkeeper. So I hired, you know, a really great friend of mine that did bookkeeping, and so she and I worked on getting everything organized. And I got in there and I realized, oh, he needs help. He needs a lot more help than he has right now. He needs people. He needs talent outside of, I mean, obviously you have talent within buying, but as far as the details, and
for sure.
you know, we like to say he creates a lot of chaos. I organize his chaos. So I was really able to use a lot of my teaching skills, my organizational skills, my people skills, my abilities to delegate, which is something that I definitely learned how to do as a teacher, to create a team, really.
Yeah. And guys, I push back on this a lot.
He pushed back a lot.
Okay.
A lot.
Because every time I came to the office, she had somebody new there. You know,
and
I was
a new
like,
process or a new system or app or something.
And that's not something that I'm good at. And so I really pushed back, and I was like, we don't need all these people. Me and Tony have done this by ourselves forever. And, you know, do we miss balls in the air sometimes? Yes. But like, we always got the job done. And I could not have been more wrong. Okay. Like, she saw the need for people and processes that have allowed us to scale probably 6 or 7 times what we were then now. And, but were you surprised at how much me and Tony were just doing by ourselves?
I'm still surprised. I mean, almost every day I think at some point, how in the world did they do all this, just the two of them, for so long?
Yeah.
Because like you said, we've really been able to scale now that we have such a great team.
Yeah, we have an amazing team here.
Yeah, we have such an amazing team. You know, culture is super important to us, and you know, just our core values of this company and what we've built. So it's a really fun, really cool thing to move past just and it's so easy to get in the weeds too, I think.
It is.
And one thing that I've learned is, and you mentioned this, I learned this from you, getting above the weeds is so important.
Yeah.
I like the weeds. I like to be in the weeds and I like the details, but being able to, I mean, you've been able to be freed up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
To not have, you know, you have a lot of people in between you to deal with a lot of the weeds.
Yeah. And that's the stuff I'm not good at anyway. And so I really hesitated to give up control of a lot of this. So it's like, okay, with servicing a note, if you record a payment incorrectly, you just lost that money. You know, so like or a decimal point, you just lost, you know, a good chunk of cash. And then I realized that Miss Abby, who joined with us, is far more talented at all of that than I ever was. And so it really gave me a lot of relief because I didn't enjoy that work anyway. And this is why I talk about death by 1,000 paper cuts, because, you know, nobody's great at everything. Like, you have a predisposition to be good at some things and not others. And so within this business, if you're a solopreneur, you're going to be dealing with details or facets of the business that you don't enjoy. And so if you don't get away from that over time, you're going to crash. And I've seen this so often. You know, and one of the things that I'll ask people is like, name me 10 people that have done 10 deals a year for 10 years straight. I can't do it. And I know a lot of people in this industry that did it by themselves. I know a lot of people that have done it and built systems and teams around it, but I don't know anybody that's done it by themselves. So were you nervous or worried about working with me?
That's a very good question. Was I nervous or worried about working with you? I don't know if I was nervous or worried about working with you. I think there was definitely just getting used to what's my lane, what's your lane. What are you willing to let me take over?
Yeah.
What am I going to insist on taking over? So that was a big learning curve in the beginning. As far as like initially, I mean, I guess there was maybe a little bit of just, I know how you are in work mode. And
we got to unpack that. So what does that mean?
oh my goodness. Okay.
Let's get into a fuss. What did you mean by that?
So anybody that knows Brad knows that he's comes across really stoic. He comes across very, he's really not, but he's hard to read sometimes, especially in work mode. Work mode, he's just very about his business. And so I think at first it was just like, are we going to be able to get along? Are we going to be able to? We had to set some boundaries as far as like we have to remain married.
Yes, for sure,
obviously,
for sure.
But like we have to not just become business partners, is what I mean by that. Like we had to say, okay, after 6 p.m., we're not going to talk about work anymore. We're going to just be married. Talk about the kids, talk about,
what's for dinner.
What's for dinner. She's usually not me cooking, but
yeah, I'm going to take her somewhere for Valentine's that she's never been before. For Valentine's, this Valentine's, you're going to go to the kitchen.
The kitchen.
Yeah.
You've
never been there before.
You going to help me?
I might have to.
You might.
I'm actually the better cook.
Yeah. He's much better cook.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I mean, as far as initially, like maybe just a little bit of what is this going to look like? Because we never imagined doing this.
No.
We had completely set out on different paths. I'm a teacher. He's an accountant / soon after real estate.
I retired quickly from accounting.
Yeah. So it's just not something we ever expected. I really, in hindsight, I'm like, this was completely ordained that we are on this path together. I absolutely love it. I love working with you. I love that we can support each other in goals. Like, I mean, obviously we have common goals as far as our marriage, our lifestyle, our families, but it's fun to have common goals in our business, so, which goes so much far beyond just the financial.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure. So I was very nervous to have you come into the business. Because whenever I worked for the builder developer that I worked for back in college, him and his wife were partners. And they did not, I think we managed our working relationship a lot better than they did. Okay. Like it was really, when they fought all the time, but it was the craziest thing at 5 p.m. for them. Even if they were in the middle of a fuss, they'd say, okay, it's 5 p.m. And they'd go back like nothing had ever happened. Like if they were in the middle of just a heated argument, 5 p.m., everything went away. I've never seen anything like that. And I can't do that. Like I guess I'm too emotional to just be like, oh, the bell is dinging. So, time's up. So I was nervous about working together. But here's what I found is I knew my wife was talented. I'm going to score some brownie points here. I knew my wife was talented. I had no idea that she was as talented as she is. And like, that's 100%. Like, her ability to go in and see like details that need to happen and processes and managing people is far beyond like what I'm capable of. And so you've done a great job, and it's been a great thing. What do you think the worst part of working together is?
Oh man. The worst part of working together. That's really hard because I really do love it.
Can't say nothing.
Oh man, that's a really tough one. The worst part of working together. I don't know. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just sometimes I do want to talk about work all the time, and we'll be on a date night and I love what we're doing. I think it's fun. There's always something to talk about with work. And so like, you'll definitely have to say sometimes, Like, okay, like, let's talk about this tomorrow. And I'm like, but I want to talk about it right now, you know? So, I guess that's maybe the worst part is just,
Yeah.
you know.
So how do people, if there's a husband and wife and they're in the business together, how do they not like let the business take over their home life?
I think one of the most important things, especially if you have children, is just to make your marriage a priority. You know, we go on a date night at least once a week,
Yep.
At a minimum, and we spend a lot of time together. You know, we spend a lot of time with our babies, a lot of time, but you know, we spend a lot of time just me and you, and we make our marriage a priority, and having things outside of. I mean, we're kind of boring people. Um, we're a little bit boring. I mean, we don't have any crazy hobbies. We're not going kayaking and mountain climbing and stuff like that.
Well,
but
shout out to Aubrey Hyam, who may be out there. He's probably swimming with sharks in Bogota right now.
Yes. So
I'm not doing that.
I mean, we enjoy going to dinner together. We enjoy going to the gym together. You know, so it's just having things that that you both can do together outside of the business, outside of being mom and dad. I think those things are important.
Yeah. So for me, the worst part about working together is I tend to have less patience for her when that's unfair, because I mean, she's been around me in this business for like a decade now. And sometimes I'm not very forgiving or understanding that you don't know everything. Right.
Well, and then sometimes he has to remind me that, you know, nobody becomes a great real estate agent overnight or knows how to, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm the type too that I think I should just have been born knowing how to, I don't know, run comps. I don't know.
Right.
What you know, especially in the beginning. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's the best part of working together?
I really just love being with you all day. I mean, we're not together all day, but I love being with you, and I love just being able to see you all day. And you're on calls a lot, but I can run in between. And I just think it's really fun. I think it's, like I said, with the common goals, it's really fun to build this business and build a little tribe. We've got such a fun little tribe here, and it's just really fun.
Yeah. I kind of feel the same way. I mean, she's always been a great life partner, but to have her as like basically a business partner too, and you know, be able to work on common goals together. I mean, I shouldered this business basically by myself, me and Tony, for years, and it kind of grown to the point it outgrew me and Tone, you know, and so it became almost a burden. But to have, you know, my partner here in life also be partner in the business is just really great to do. So, I mean, if you can work with your spouse, I really highly recommend that you create your goals together, and that you go in, and because I mean that's buy-in. Like whether you have a spouse that's super supportive or not, if you can get that spouse to like buy into the goal together, then that person may understand a little bit more about, well, you know, it's Saturday night, we had a date night, but this house just came in and it's a great deal, I'm going to go buy it. Because, you know, they created that goal with you, right? So what advice would you have for a husband or a wife that is not supportive of their spouse doing this business?
For husband or wife, you know, I really feel like if your spouse is thoughtfully, prayerfully going into a decision, any decision, but specifically, you know, going into this business, you know, I do think there are exceptions. You know, if your spouse has a long track record of just horrible decisions and blowing money on crazy stuff, and
hey, those Beanie Babies are coming back now.
I mean, you know, then that's a different scenario. But, you know, if your spouse is thoughtfully, prayerfully going through this decision-making process, you know, listen and just take the time to not completely shut them down, because I think that's the worst thing you can do with your spouse one of the worst things you can do is just completely shut down their dreams.
Yeah.
And realize that in most situations, they're doing this for you. They're doing this for their family. They want to better your family. Oftentimes to leave a legacy, to just have, have more different things, not just material things, but maybe it's lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I was working my 9-to-5 job, like I did not even realize that that's what I wanted, was the time freedom. And so just hearing them out and recognizing like what's their heart behind this, like it's more often than not, it's not just for themselves, it's for you, it's for your family. So
And I think that's true. What I see, or certainly have seen in the past, is, and I think this is tough to combat. I don't really know how to combat this, but you'll have an unsupportive spouse that feels like, okay, my spouse is my spouse at this level, but if this person becomes successful and has more options, then where does that put me in their life? And I think that's a sad thing, but I think it makes sense. It's just insecurity, and so it's like, I don't really have a great answer for someone that's going through that, And it's like, and I think about how terrible that is, because, I don't know that and there are people out there that are this way. It's like, you are not going to buy and sell real estate. You are not going to do this. If you do, then I'm going to leave you. And I have people that come to calls about joining with us, and that's literally what they're going through. I don't think that I could deal very well with that ultimatum, because it's like, if I have a responsibility to be the best that I can be as an individual, and you're literally the roadblock that's keeping me from being there, I mean, I think I would have a tough time with that, and I hate that people are in that situation.
And I don't think that every husband and wife needs to work together.
I agree.
If one spouse has gifts and talents in other areas, if they're a nurse or a teacher, or like they've got a completely different gifting, they want to stay home with their kids, homeschool. I mean, they're just not all couples have to work together.
Yeah.
But I do think sharing those common goals is really important, and sharing those common goals. I think I've always known what your goals are.
Yeah.
And I've always known what your heart is, in those goals, that it's not just financial, it's lifestyle, it's having time freedom.
Yeah.
I think that's super helpful in regardless of the situation, whether the spouses are working together, whether, the spouse that's unsupportive has a completely different gifting.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And again, the unsupportive spouse may very well be rooted in what they think is best for you, because they feel like this is just too big of a risk.
Mm-hmm.
But, I had an uncle who worked a corporate job for 30 years, and then in the crash of 2008 lost his pension. For me, that seems more dangerous. Like, it's just, how do you define risk?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So let's say that you're having a conversation with someone and their spouse is unsupportive. Mm-hmm. So like, how do you feel like someone should handle that?
If I'm having a conversation with the unsupportive spouse?
The person that wants to do this, but
Mm-hmm.
they're dealing with an unsupportive spouse.
I mean, I would ask if you've shared, you've had a conversation about why. What's your big why? Have you really explored that for yourself? Because I do think you have to do that for yourself first, like really getting down deep and what is my why in this? I have a friend who always talks about the big why in terms of, someone who wants to lose weight. Why do you want to lose weight? Shout out to Krista Hawkins. This is hers all completely. But why do you want to lose weight? It's like, well, I just, I want to look a little better. and you ask some more questions, and it's finally like, I want to be able to go down the slide with my child. Like, that's the why, like that big reason, like, why do you want this? And I think, if you've connected with that yourself, and then you've shared that with your spouse, and I think it's just communication, really, I think is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know, if you're not sharing and communicating, and you don't know yourself, like, why I want this, you think like, oh, I just want, all this, this money, like,
right.
It's often about more than that,
Well, it started off being money for me. My first goal was to be able to go to the grocery store and not have to look at what the prices were. And I remember the first time that I ever really accomplished that was when me and you and Phil went to Chewy's. And Phil's my old buddy from 6th grade. And I didn't look at the menu, like the pricing. I just got what I wanted. And we had a couple margaritas on the patio. It was a beautiful, like that first beautiful spring day. We just had a great time. And I was like, wow, like this is nice, So, which is financial. And now it's more about contribution, building a team where everybody does well together, and then replicating the process with other people, So those goals will change over time. To add one thing, I think you're 100% right. Like if I had an unsupportive spouse, I would absolutely try to make them emotionally understand the reason behind why I feel like I have to accomplish this. But if it's not well received, then I think it's like a line in the sand. You have to make the decision, like, are you going to commit to this business, like regardless of spouse, or are you going to kind of play it safe and try to appease? I have a picture of Winston Churchill on my wall. He's one of my favorite figures in history. He didn't really believe in appeasement, and so I love his standards. That's one of the reasons he's on the wall. But I do feel if you have an unsupportive spouse, it may not make sense to share everything about the business. It's like if you make the decision to go into it and you're going to do it, come hell or high water, then it's like grind, don't share. I believe in the mentor-mentee relationship. I do not believe in sharing your doubts or fears with anyone but that person, because otherwise, it's if you have a spouse that already has a fear-based mindset and you're adding to that, I don't think that that's a good idea. Okay. Any other final thoughts for you about working with your spouse, or how amazing it's been to work with me?
I think that we've been very blessed in the last couple of years in meeting people, and even within our group of apprentices, having people come on board with us that are also doing this with their spouse.
Right.
So we've got some good friends that we actually met with at Hibachi.
Yeah.
They've become great friends, and they're working together on this business. And so I think having other people, other spouses that are walking this journey with you and know what it's like. And, it's not always easy. It's not always, there are definitely times where Brad and I disagree about things, and, but, it's nice to have people that are walking the same journey as you with their spouse, and you can kind of be in community with other people, talk to them about what it's like, and just different perspectives. So I think that that's really important, to not be alone in it.
Yeah, for sure.
So
that makes a lot of sense. So final thought for me, I think you have to decide, if you have an unsupportive spouse, really how far you're going to take it, and then decide what that commitment is. And so for me, I never had to deal with an unsupportive spouse. So like it's tough for me to understand it personally, although I've seen it a lot within people that we've helped. And so motivation gets you started. It's a commitment that keeps you going. So, we live and die by our standards. We may have a goal for ourselves where if we hit the goal, then that's great, and we're excited, but we always fall to our lowest standard. So like a standard that I have now, my children go to the school that I want them to go to, regardless of the cost. And so for me, it's like, I will do whatever is necessary work-wise. I'll no vacations, no eating out, whatever we have to do to meet that lowest standard, because that's like super high priority for me. You know, everybody's going to have a different idea of what those standards are for them, but it's going to be the commitment to the business that keeps you going. Okay. I love working with my wife. Again, I don't think it's for everybody, but I think it's an amazing thing whenever you can have what we have. And I mean, I highly recommend the business. You know, if you have a spouse and you guys are thinking about joining the real estate investing business, feel free to subscribe to us on Investor Creator on iTunes and join the Investor Creator community on Facebook. We're going to be doing lives every Tuesday. So I'll have a different person with me every Tuesday. So generally going to be Big Tony. Shout out Tony Woodall. But, you know, we're having a lot of fun. So appreciate you guys being with us. If you need anything, reach out, brad@bradsmotherman.com. For training, reach out to support@bradsmotherman.com. We'll see you guys next time. Y'all have a good day.